to everyone's voice. And sometimes you hear people say and do things that are not in their voice. Another way to think of it, out of character for them. And there were a few moments in this Tucker Carlson interview of Huckabee where Tucker Carlson was not speaking with the normal voice and viewpoint that he would normally speak. And it's troubling. And I'm not exactly sure why he's done this. And I don't mean is he getting paid by this country or that country. What I mean is this an act of desperation on his part? Remember, he was making $20 million a year at Fox, and they fired him. And has he sold his soul to some really bad people promoting really bad agendas to keep that lifestyle going at the income level that he became accustomed? But I found this very disturbing. His whole trip to the airport in Israel, because he never left the airport, but his entire trip to Israel has been nothing short of embarrassing and just a PR disaster for him. So let me play this. All this fighting over Israel and everything over the years, that's what this clip is about with Tucker and Huckabee. And Israel belongs to the Jews. And we know this because the Bible tells us this, right? On multiple occasions, God gave the land of Israel to the Jews. And that's something that in Western civilization is accepted, because Western civilization is predominantly a Christian civilization, and we believe in the Bible, and the Bible says this. But that's not the way Tucker's talking. Listen to that. This is Tucker with the interview with Huckabee. Wow. Okay. In my lifetime, I've heard a lot of people that are sadly anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. It's just sadly it's the way some people are. I've never heard something quite like this. What he is questioning here is he's questioning whether or not those who are calling themselves Jews are actually Jews. He is calling for the genetic testing of people who claim to be Jews to determine whether or not they are Jews. I mean, this is right out of Nazi Germany. Let me rewind it. We'll play the whole thing. Mm. Yeah, exactly. Would we go to Ireland and genetic test the Irish or Native Hawaiians? Those who claim and do genetic testing to see if they have a right to live in Ireland or Hawaii. This is some hardcore, weird talk from Tucker. Mm. Okay. This is not the way an American talks. This is the way people that are not Christian talk in other parts of the world that don't understand anything. I've never heard anything like this. This interview that Tucker did is not for an American audience. It's for another audience somewhere. And it's really insane talk is what it is. It's really insane talk. And I'm so disappointed in him. Do you know how many Jews there are in the world? Do you know? A little more than 16 million. That's it. A little more than 16 million. About half of them live in Israel. And of the other half, a huge percentage of them live here in Florida, where I'm at, and in the United States. I mean, there are not that many Jews. And what's lost from all of this is, why does modern day Israel exist? And this is not even on the radar of Tucker Carlson, who wants to do genetic testing to find out who the real Jews are and not. And if you don't pass his genetic test, you're out of Israel. Of the 16 million Jews in the world today, I don't know how many of them are converts. I don't know. I don't know how many of them would pass the Tucker Carlson genetic test. But I do know why modern day Israel exists. And I know most of you do too, but I'm going to explain to the liberally impaired in the audience why. When the Nazis came to power before the war in the 30s, and they started doing what they did, many Jews tried to escape Germany. Many Jews tried to escape Europe, and no one in the world would take them, including the United States. Franklin Roosevelt was the president, and he would not allow Jews fleeing Europe to enter the United States. He wouldn't. And Israel was, the horrors of the Holocaust were not widely known until after the war. Now, there's a lot of discussion and debate over how much the government knew, the U.S. government and the governments of the world knew during the war. I don't know. We really don't know. There's been a lot of speculation. We don't know for a fact. We didn't have modern spy networks and technology, so they knew to a certain extent what was going on, but they very well may not have known how bad it was until later. In fact, I'm going to play maybe some more of Tucker. He was questioning Netanyahu because his family's from Poland. I mean, the Jews were virtually wiped out of Poland during the Holocaust. But when the horrors of the Holocaust were revealed to the world, to the public, and shocking beyond imagination, no doubt about it. I mean, this is something that we've all known our whole lives. But can you imagine in 1945, 1946, when the general population after the war were learning about the Holocaust for the first time? It must have been so traumatic for people around the world. So in 1948, the United Nations, led by Truman in the United States, set up modern-day Israel so that another Holocaust would not happen, so that Jews would have a place to safely go and avoid an attempt at extermination of the Jews happening again, because the United States and the rest of the world wouldn't take Jews in. The countries of Europe turned their Jews over to the Nazis in many instances. Okay? That's why Israel exists. Israel, there's only 16 million Jews in the world today. So it's amazing how few there are. I mean, when I first learned that, I was in shock that there's only 16 million Jews. Because I live in South Florida, we have a large Jewish population. I didn't realize how few Jews there are in the world. 16 million, a little more. So, with half being in Israel. So what's been going on since modern day Israel was established by the United Nations is evildoers around the world have been trying to continue and complete the Holocaust. And that's why Israel's important. We don't need genetic tests. The Middle East is a very big place. Israel is a very tiny place, and as rich as the Middle East is in resources, Israel is not. They got nice beaches, and they got all the religious sites, of course, but natural resources wise, Israel doesn't have very much, and the rest of the Middle East is rich and abundant. And all these attacks on Israel over the years have nothing to do with the land. Okay? Israel has been very welcoming of the other religions, Christianity and Islam, into Israel because, you know, not only, of course, do we have the Christian sites throughout Israel, but Muhammad ascended to heaven in Jerusalem, all right, from Jerusalem. And those sites are respected, and Muslims are welcome just as Christians are, even though it is the Jewish state, because that's why it was established. The conflict isn't about the land of Israel. It's about anti-Semites wanting to rid the world of Jews like Hitler did. And Tucker Carlson, I mean, this is some sick stuff. Here's another clip, Tucker with Huckabee. Yeah. See, Tucker, you know, Tucker here, the problem he's having with Huckabee, he's having a couple of problems with Huckabee. Huckabee, he's the U.S. ambassador, of course, to Israel. So he knows Israel. He knows everything about it. He's very knowledgeable. But he's also a Baptist minister. So he knows his Bible. And he knows what he's talking about. So Tucker Carlson doesn't really know what he's talking about. He's a layman going up against a guy who has the equivalent of a PhD in the Bible and in Israel and the history of it with Huckabee. And that's why the interview went so flat. But you know, your thoughts on Tucker are certainly welcome. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll free, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. But, you know, Tucker, and like with Candace Owens, when Tucker started getting weird, and as well as Candace Owens, I told you guys, I said, they will do themselves in. Because once they start going down these dark paths, they're gonna go down more and more, and they're gonna start crossing all kinds of lines. And that's what's happened here. And with this trip to the Israeli airport for the Huckabee interview was a big mistake for Tucker. And he's making it worse for himself. Why he made up that story about the harassment of the Israeli officials that didn't happen, I don't know. Maybe it was it was after the interview, so maybe he was so embarrassed by the interview, because believe me, he knows he was out of his league with Huckabee. He knows that interview did not go well. He knows that he looked bad in that interview. And maybe he was just so out of it because he was humiliated that he made up this story about the immigration thing at the airport. I don't know. But he's really been revealed to a lot of people as being a very bad person that had been backing him lately. I woke up to him quite a while ago. A lot of you did. But a lot of people tuned it out, and he's doing a masterful job, Tucker Carlson, of discrediting himself. All right, so I wanted to share. This is Will Cain over on Fox. I like Will Cain. He took over the time slot that Neil Cavuto had. I never liked Cavuto. I never liked that guy, and I didn't watch him. I couldn't watch him. I just couldn't stand him. Will Cain's very good. And he had Scott Bessent on, our Treasury Secretary, and he brought up something pretty interesting. Listen to this. Yep. Yeah. And I know some people may say, well, no, wait a minute. Bill Clinton's Attorney General Janet Reno was gay. She was not out of the closet. She was in the closet. She hid that she was gay, Janet Reno. So President Trump, with the Treasury Secretary here, this is the highest ranking official this government has ever had who's openly gay. And what Will Kane said is, it's so right. I mean, because the left don't want us to know about it, because the left don't like Trump, they don't want to promote that, so they don't tell people that. And the other thing is, it's a secondary thing. Everyone in the MAGA movement knows that the Treasury Secretary is gay and openly gay, and no one cares. And they want to brand us the homophobes. Why? Because President Trump doesn't go out and brag when he appoints somebody who's gay. He's very good. I don't know too much about his background. I mean, I know he's a success and all that in the private sector. But I would have, based on what I know of Scott Bessent and the great work I've seen him do, and I think most MAGA people agree, I wouldn't mind seeing him being president or vice president of the United States. Would you? He is so incredibly competent. And the fact that he's gay has nothing to do with his job, and it doesn't factor in, as opposed to Democrats who, with the checkbox that they're always checking off, think all these things are important. Like Susan Rice, who is bragging about this revenge. Vote Democrat in the midterm so we can enact revenge and start having show trials and political prisoners. Listen to her. Oh, my goodness. See, hear this? I mean, these are threats that Susan Rice is making. What she's saying is, anyone who has worked with the Trump administration, you are a collaborator, and you will be punished as a collaborator. That's what she's saying here. Pretty scary stuff, isn't it? That's how these communists think. Wow. Maybe not in her circle. President Trump won the popular vote in every battleground state. His latest approval rating was 50% among all voters. That factors in Democrat voters. He's not popular in her Obama circle. Man? So you hear this? So not only is she promising revenge in show trials, she's talking about a purge like Stalin did in the 50s in the Soviet Union of enemies of the state. What she's saying is anyone who's cooperated with the Trump administration is an enemy of the people. That's the phrase the Soviets used, an enemy of the people. Yeah, I mean, this is frightening. And you know what's crazy is this is what's been running the country. That type of thought for a long time. 8 years of Obama, and then another 4 years with the Autopen administration, which was basically Obama's third term. And those of you that are Democrats, how does it make you feel thinking about roundups and persecutions of people that they don't like? You know, President Trump, if you followed President Trump since he came down the escalator, you know what? President Trump never attacks the American people. He attacks Democrats. He might talk about an individual that's in the news that gets involved in something, but he never attacks the American people. He never says anything negative about the American people. The Democrats, like Susan Rice here, all they do is talk about the American people that are enemies of the state, enemies of the people, that they want to round up and lock up because they don't agree with them. You know, the J6 prisoners, those guys were never going to get out of jail, even the ones that didn't get tried. Political prisoners. Who would have thought we would have ever had political prisoners in the United States? And Susan Rice, as we're in this midterm election season, is saying, hey, vote Democrat, we're going to have political prisoners. She's bragging about it. And, you know, I pulled this up. This is our great president after the Never-Trumpers shot him in Butler. Fight, fight, fight. Look at that, his face covered in blood. You know, they tried to turn the MAGA voters against President Trump. They tried to put President Trump in jail, and when that failed, they shot him in Butler. And because the screen was on the other side of the stage that it's normally on, they were not successful. And you know, and then they tried again at the golf course here in Florida. So remember this, everything that President Trump is doing, they shot him in Butler to try to stop it from happening. I mean, you know, look, he's doing so many great things. Look what happened with the Supreme Court and the tariffs. He didn't lose with the Supreme Court yesterday. The tariffs are still in place, and he put in a global tariff. He raised them another 10% worldwide. He knows what they're about. He knows that there's no meeting of the minds with the left. He knows that no matter what he does, no matter how great it is, they still want to put all of us in prison who disagree with them politically. Because the left are radical revolutionaries. President Trump and the MAGA movement is a counter-revolution, right? Stopping the communist revolution that Obama brought into office. If you're on hold, standby. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll-free, 888-465-2631. It's a toll-free call no matter where you are listening, 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. Now look at this. This is, as hard as it is to believe, this is a Republican sheriff in California who's running for governor, okay? And his name's Chad Bianco. Chad Bianco. He's a sheriff. He's a Republican. He's running for governor in California. Listen to this. This is a California Republican. What about a bank robbery or a kidnapping? Those are federal crimes, right? If somebody crosses a state line in a kidnapping, somebody robs a federal. There's bank robberies, federal crime. Is the sheriff here going to let his deputies help with those? Wow, there's your California Republican. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Did Trump background check?
Yeah, no. All right, if you're on hold, stand by. Friday show, just to let you guys know the format of the show. Friday morning is open phones on the program, okay? On Friday's show in the morning you can call in about any and everything on your mind. The other days of the week, you got to call in about what I'm talking about, okay? Friday's open phones. The other days, you got to stay on topic. You're listening to The Brian Craig Show. My name is Brian Craig. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian. And of course, the Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Just wherever you get your podcast, search for the Brian Craig Show, and I'll pop up. If you want to catch the show live in video form, where you hear me taking live calls, that's on YouTube, Brian Craig Show on YouTube. All right, so here in Florida, we've got a governor's race going on, and Byron Donalds is our MAGA favorite. There's no doubt about it. You know, the Byron Donalds, I'm a little concerned about Byron Donalds, and I'll tell you why. I'm in Florida, and I don't see any indication that he's running for governor. I mean, I know he mentioned it a while back, and we talk about it, but I don't see an active campaign going on. He's got this guy, this fake Republican called Fish Sticks, is his name. Fishback, I call him Fish Stick, I'm not sure what his name is. Never heard of this guy before, and he's out there every day running for governor, and he's a very strange guy. But Byron Donalds just doesn't seem to be running. And, you know, we've had a great run here with DeSantis. I don't trust DeSantis, but he's been a great governor. I don't trust him for a number of reasons, not just because he lied to President Trump and all of us that he wouldn't run against President Trump. You know, I was talking about Butler earlier. The plan that the Never Trumpers had is if Butler would have gone the other way, and thank the Lord it didn't, they were going to nominate Nikki Haley to be the Republican nominee with Ron DeSantis as her running mate, I believe. And I'm not saying he was involved in the plot against Trump. I'm not saying that at all. But the fact that the conspirators and plotters against Trump thought that DeSantis was part of their future, I just can't trust him. Can't trust him. But he's been a great governor, even doing great things still today. And the governor we had before him is Rick Scott, who's now a Florida senator. He was a great governor, but Ron DeSantis has been incredible, even after the betrayal and everything else. And when Byron Donalds first announced he was running, all of us were very excited, but he's really been on the down low. He's been almost like hiding. I see him in Washington on TV sometimes. He needs to be here in Florida campaigning. His opponent, Fish Sticks, is out there campaigning. And yesterday, a smear story dropped in the Daily Mail, and it's in other places too. He's on his second marriage, Byron Donalds. Here's the headline: Scandalous Marriage Secrets of Florida Governor Frontrunner, Ex-Wife's Pregnancy Bombshell After Instagram Blunder Outed Him. I don't know the details of this story. I don't care, okay? I want to have a great MAGA man as the next governor of Florida. Florida is very, very important. I think we're the third most populated state right now, and we're about to become the second. The entire MAGA movement is based out of Florida, right? The president lives in Florida. Kash Patel lives in Florida. Pam Bondi lives in Florida. And this is a MAGA state. But the fact that Byron Donalds has been out of the campaign loop, because I haven't seen him in the news at all doing any campaigning. I remember at this point when DeSantis was running, he was all over the place all the time in his first campaign. Byron is not. And DeSantis was in the House when he ran for governor of Florida, had a House seat. So he would be at hearings, but he was, and you'd see him on TV in House hearings, but he was here in Florida too, campaigning a lot. And Byron's hasn't. And I'm wondering if this scandal with his first wife that well, I don't know if it's a scandal. They're calling it a scandal in the media. But this story with his wife, is this why he hasn't been out there? Now, the thing about this, his ex-wife is talking. Whose ex-wife praises them? Well, President Trump's have, you know. But other than President Trump, getting an ex-wife to say something good about a politician running for office who's married to somebody else now, that doesn't happen very often. Byron Donalds, who's black, his first wife is black, and his second wife is white. So his first wife is doubly pissed off at Byron Donalds. She's pissed off that they got divorced and he's got this big life going on. And black women don't like it when their husbands leave them for white women too. So there's a double thing there. But I did see this story yesterday. I didn't read it, okay? And I just read the headline like I just did. And then I just saw this. Look at this. James Fishback, that's the weirdo Republican who's running. You know, Byron Donalds has to win the nomination. We still got the Republican primary, and James Fishback, I call him Fish Sticks, he has been running nonstop from one end of the state of Florida over the other, having town hall meetings and get-togethers all the time. He just had a big town hall on a podcast on the coast of the Gulf of America over in Naples, Florida, at this, there's a grocery store over there that's a MAGA grocery store. I can't remember the name of the grocery store. It's pretty well known. He did a podcast town hall meeting inside this Trump grocery store in Naples this week. He's doing he had a small town hall political event at Walt Disney World at Disney Springs, and he's all over the place. And he's running as a Republican, regardless of what he's really about. And look at this. This is in Newsweek magazine. James Fishback said this week he would support changing the laws so that anyone who cheats would lose full custody and full claims to any assets in that marriage. So, of course, that's taking a jab at Byron Donalds. And it also, a couple things about this, because you know, when you follow how the left operate when it comes to politics here, as far as I'm concerned, this James Fishsticks guy is a fake Republican. I don't care what he says. He runs around talking about America first. Byron Donalds has the support of President Trump. Okay, so an America first Republican backs whoever President Trump is backing. If you are not backing the Trump-endorsed candidate, you're not America first. I don't care what you say. You can go around and say that all you want. His America first is coded language for he doesn't support Israel, all right? But this comment of his is obviously aimed at Byron Donalds, and this just firms up my belief that James Fishsticks here is a fake Republican. And if you look him up online, you got to look at this. I mean, he's a strange-looking dude. And this is what I mean by this, okay? This attack on Byron Donalds. Now, I'm married to my first wife, like the guys at Chick-fil-A that run Chick-fil-A. So I don't support people getting divorced and marrying their former mistresses and stuff like that. And I know President Trump's been married 3 times. I get it. I don't support that, okay? But a lot of times, what Democrats do, what liberals do when they're trying to pass themselves off as Republicans, is they present themselves with a liberal stereotype of what they think MAGA Republicans are. And this is an example of that. With President Trump, before they shot him in Butler, they were trying to get him in jail all the time. And what they told themselves is this. You've heard me talk about this a lot. That Trump supporters, MAGA people, support law and order. If we get Trump arrested, they'll turn on him. Remember, everything they did, and still do today, the Never Trumpers and the liberals, is to try to get us to drop our support of President Trump. So they got him arraigned and arrested in New York. Remember, he had to fly to New York and show up. And it didn't hurt his support. His support grew. And then they did it again. They said, well, maybe, that didn't mean much to people. We'll do it again. So then they broke into his house at Mar-a-Lago, and they arrested him again in the federal courts. Remember, he had to show up to federal court in Miami, and they arrested him again in Miami. And they thought, well, we got 2 arrests. He's twice arrested. These MAGAs, they'll turn against him. His support grew after that. So then they told themselves, well, it's because we didn't get a mugshot. They didn't get a mugshot in New York. They didn't get a federal court mugshot. Because we don't have a mugshot, it's not real to them. If they see a mugshot of Trump, these MAGA people will drop him. They support law and order. They're all about law and order. They're pro-police. They're about their Bibles and morality. And it's just not real to them. But if we get a mugshot of Donald Trump, they'll turn. So they got Fannie Willis to arrest him in Fulton County, Georgia, and they got the mugshot, which is a beautiful mugshot that President Trump posed for very, very nicely. And it's, people have that. Do I have a picture in the studio of it? No, I got a picture of it in the other room. but it's hanging on the wall of the Oval Office, and that didn't turn us against him. So when they got the mugshot, all these things, and we didn't turn against them, they said these MAGA people, they're never going to turn against President Trump, and they're right. So what happened? They shot him in Butler. But they're always trying to, these fake Republicans present themselves with this stereotype. You hear it when they call me on the phones, right? When I'm talking to fake Republicans that call me on the show here. And Fish Sticks here, who's running in the Republican primary for governor against Byron Donalds, I'll read this again from Newsweek. James Fishback said this week he would support changing the law so that anyone who cheats would lose full custody and full claims to any assets in that marriage. Well, you know, as conservatives, we don't support divorce and cheating and all of that. That goes without saying, and I would hope even liberals don't support such things. However, the idea of taking away any claims they have on any property in that marriage, which could be the house, the cars, the bank accounts, investment accounts, whatever their family, because they committed adultery, that's a fake Republican who's trying to present themselves as a conservative based on a liberal negative stereotype of how Republicans feel about things. You understand what I mean? And it's all about Byron Donalds. It's so obvious. You know, these fake Republicans, they can't help themselves. They always end up outing themselves. All right, listen, if you're on hold, hang in there. If you'd like to call in, you're welcome to do so. The number is toll-free, 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. If you're watching live on YouTube, the number is pinned in the live chat. My name is Brian Craig. We'll take a quick break and be back with more after this. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian. I used to, I don't know, I guess I was a fan of De Niro before he started trashing Trump. And most people were. I mean, the movies of De Niro, a lot of the movies. I was never a big fan of the De Niro parts of Godfather 2. If Godfather 2 was ever on, I'd fast forward through those, watch the parts with Pacino. But I was always a big fan of Heat. Heat is one of my favorite movies. It's a Michael Mann movie, and since Robert De Niro started trashing Trump, I can't watch Heat anymore. And I remember he was at the courthouse in New York. He's a petty person, and his work is unwatchable to me now. I just can't. He's just too ugly. And he did a sit-down interview with Nicole Wallace. Of course, they're trashing Trump. And you got to remember, Nicole Wallace is a Republican, right? She worked for John McCain. So this is De Niro with Nicole Wallace. And De Niro thinks that when Trump's term is up, he will refuse to leave the White House. Remember, they made that claim the first time, and what happened? He left. But De Niro says he'll never leave. Really? What does that mean, Robert De Niro? Make him leave? What do you mean by that, Robert De Niro? He's not talking about nationalizing the elections. The states would still control the elections. It's just you need a state-issued photo ID to vote. Who's this we that had this weird fantasy De Niro was talking about? Exactly. What does that mean? Yeah. Oh, that's from the Nicole Wallace podcast. I think that's a podcast we could all miss. You know, it, he left after the first time. So why would he not leave after? And these Democrats, whether it's Susan Rice I was sharing earlier, who's promising to round up and imprison anyone who's cooperated with President Trump's administration, Robert De Niro wants some forcible action taken to remove Trump from office. People that are Democrats, they say we're the hateful ones, we're the evil ones. The things they're putting people in prison, like Susan Rice is talking about because she doesn't agree with them politically. Robert De Niro wants to have some kind of civilian action to remove the president. And listen to this guy. He's got a MAGA neighbor. Listen to this guy. He's talking about his MAGA neighbor. Oh my goodness. And he crossed his fingers. He's hoping that his neighbor dies because they support President Trump. I mean, who thinks that way? Who talks that way? Who wishes for things like that? Not Republicans, but we're the hateful ones? We're the evil ones? That's how the left are. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. And if you'd like to support my channel, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes, access to exclusive live streams, and a lot of other exclusive content as well. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen on YouTube and you get a live on-air thank you shout out on every episode of the podcast. So the names you will hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, Doris, and Rick. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. And if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of the episode on whatever platform you are listening to. So when the Supreme Court decision came down, the liberals got all excited. They thought Trump had lost something. Not only are the tariffs still in place, he raised them all by 10%, right? So things didn't go the way that they wanted. Here is big Trump hater, fake news anchor Jake Tapper on CNN. Listen to this. Sorry, Jake Tapper. Didn't go down the way you thought it would. Yes, Trump won, which we all knew he would. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. My name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.